And at some point I must have decided that a song about an elf would have been a good idea. And so I recorded this basically fairly poppy, folky thing called The Elf that I think sold 496 copies, all of which are very valuable now.
I sat upon the evening hill, the shadows set, the night grew still. And as I sat guitar on knee, a voice of flowers called to me, sing, sing to me your song, sing, for I belong to the night. In the grey morning light I'll be gone. I turned with eyes that strained for sight, and there amid the failing light dimly saw a figure small, heard a voice of magic call, sing, sing to me your song, sing, for I belong to the night. In the grey morning light I'll be gone. My fumbling fingers found the chords, my trembling lips fought for the words. I stopped to ask the stranger how, he softly said, now but sing, sing to me your song, sing, for I belong to the night. In the grey morning light I'll be gone. Then with the magic of the elves my fingers danced among themselves. My heart with lightness thus endowed formed melodies I know not how, and song played the whole night long. Thus he danced and laughed through the night, and with grey morning light he was gone. Now the whispering wind plays o'er the hill, and the evening sounds again grow still. A year or more has passed since then. Oh, he will not pass my way again. And so I sing, sing to you my song, sing, for I belong to the night. In the grey morning light I'll be gone. And so I sing, sing to you my song, sing, for I belong to the night. In the grey morning light I'll be gone. So I sing to you my song.
Among the many budding singer-songwriters Al came into contact with during that period was another emerging star, Ralph McTell.
From the age of about 16, when I first arrived in the West End, I used to come up from Croydon on the train to Victoria and find my way into Soho and Fitzrovia. Because there was the beginnings of what became, I guess, the acoustic music scene. And it wasn't so much related to folk music, it was related to beatniks and poems and jazz and some blues guitar players and people like Buck Polly and Pete Brown and Whiz Jones. And I used to just come and almost gawping at these exotic and strange and wonderful people. And there was these, you know, it was a fantastic period of thinking, goodness me, I'm not the only one who's interested in this sort of music. And of course it was a tradition, or if that's the right word, that goes way back into the 30s and 40s, because that part of London's always had a kind of bohemian sort of feel to it. And Brendan Behan used to be there in the 50s, and before that, Dylan Thomas and all that arty crowd. So I was already familiar with the West End when suddenly this acoustic music scene started throwing up folk clubs, and I suppose principally the club Les Cousins became an absolute centre in Greek Street. In fact, the Les Cousins had the only microphone that I'm aware of in a folk club anywhere, and we all loved to use the microphone. So acoustic music didn't stand much of a chance unless you were going to be in a place where they would sit and listen quietly, and that meant playing it in folk clubs. Al wrote a song called Almost Lucy about the folk music circuit in the 60s, and it's a very good track. Actually sounds very fresh even today. There's a touch of the old Paul Simons there as well, that rhythm feel that I know Paul used to use it a lot. And of course he was knocking about the scene at that time as well, nicking riffs off of people and tunes and all sorts, and skulking around Soho. There were a lot of people around at that time. There seemed to be everybody that could play 3 chords on the guitar decided they were songwriters, and I have to say that the Lucy character in that song, I don't know who she was, but she might have fitted into that category, because this is the generation that were putting the world to rights through music, and it was a music of great integrity at the time, I have to say. The idea of exploitation and all that didn't come into it. It was the music of integrity, and we were helping and being part of changing things.
Lucy worked a different club every day, and though she put her mind to it, her heart was never in it. She stayed around just long enough to get paid. She won't pass the time with you, she can't stay a minute. And all these changing faces never bothered her at all. They just existed like a backdrop or a pattern on the wall. Lucy looks like someone who is waiting for a call. She knows he'll come, but no one else can hear it all. Lucy finds the dressing room and the bar, hangs her clothes up, hopes tonight the contract won't be broken. Well, they kick you round so much when you're not a star, make you play all night just for a pittance or a token. But all these imperfections never bothered her at all. She says it sharpens your perception when your back's against the wall. There's something that enables her to rise above it all, to shrug it off just when it seems to go too far. Hey, 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 I think you almost feel the pain coming on inside. Hey, 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 I think you almost feel it now, and you don't know why. You don't know why.
I met Ian Anderson and Maggie Holland they had a place in Bristol, and I used to play at the Bristol Troubadour so often, in fact, that I was taken off the guest list and put on the residence list. I seemed to be there every week. And Ian was a very good Monopoly player. You know? It seems like a strange thing, but I used to stay at his house when I went to Bristol, so I would play at the Troubadour, which was the local folk club. And then we'd go home and we'd literally sit around and play Monopoly all night till about 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I ever won. I mean, I might have won once, but Ian was a very, very good Monopoly player.
I first came across Al as a performer when I used to hitch up from Bristol to London for weekends to go to the all-nighters at the club called The Cousins in Greek Street, and Al was a regular performer there. And we became good friends, and he was just beginning to go out around the clubs in one of his early sports cars, beginning to get gigs. And he liked company, and he was always a very helpful guy at encouraging other performers, like-minded people and pals. And so fairly early on, he used to say to me, you know, do you want to come to my gigs and you can do a floor spot and you can keep me company on the drive? And I certainly wasn't the only person that he did that to. I know he helped out other performers like John Martin and the Canadian singer Bruce Cockburn when he first came over at the end of the 1960s. I remember Al taking him around. Always incredibly helpful to others.